welcome back to Turbiize, back with another weekly video for the channel. As you can see behind me, we're starting out this week's video in the 6-light FlexStar room, which will ultimately be the testing room for Blem Genetics in the future. But if you've been following along with the channel over the last 6 months or so, we've been having a real big issue in this building where plants have been dying within 7 to 12 days of being exposed in this space. We worked through the entire process of growing from the water source, air quality, nutrients, growing medium, and so on, to figure out what was actually causing the issue in this space that was killing our clones every time they got in the building. Up until this point of the plants dying, we ended up changing everything, and then we decided that it was the air quality and some type of off-gassing happening in the building. We ended up adding this 4025, which is an air ionizer and reduces the pathogen or mold load inside the room if there's any type of issues with those things inside the space. We also added a HEPA filter down here, which is circulating the air inside the room to improving the air quality inside the room. The combination of those two items was able to get the plants to survive in this space. We tested some clones and they ended up surviving 20-25 days in here. Right before adding those two items, I did redo a bunch of the plumbing in this space. I am located in Thailand, so the plumbing in most of the building in this area that I am isn't really up to the Western standard. All the drains in the space, none of them had any P-traps, so the septic tank under the building was just off-gassing into the space over time. I ended up adding some P-traps to the locations that I could, and then the other locations that I could not add. Since this building is concrete, I just covered up, sealed fully, so no gases can get inside the building. Thankfully, we ended up getting plants to survive in this room. I only added the air ionizer and the HEPA filter inside this room, see if it did do anything. Then we moved upstairs and tested plants up there in the grow tent room. Ultimately, those ended up dying again over about 10 days. So I ordered another 4025 and the HEPA filter, added those two items to the room above, and we are able to get plants to survive again. Which brings me to where I am currently standing at this point. I did a bunch of work off of camera between the last video on the channel and this video, so let's just get you guys up to date. We have all of our clones here ready for both this room and the room upstairs where we're doing the breeding project in 3 different grow tents. We have 12 strains down here, which is all my clones that I took myself from the rooftop where we have some outdoor plants growing. We are going to pick 5 of these strains to go in this room on half of this table. So 3 plants of 5 different strains. And the remaining half of this table will be rainbow fruits, which we have right here on this half of the tray here. The remaining plants in the room will be all white runts, where we'll fill this entire table with. We have our 1-gallon cocoa bags already spaced out in our grow spaces here. We're using the FlexStar 120 watt under canopy lighting below the canopy, and above the canopy we're using the FlexStar 720 watt LED Pro model. Each table is its own zone. We're controlling each one with our FlexStar Zeus controller. This has a 2-channel, 1 and 2 right here. So 1 channel is controlling our lights above and 1 channel is controlling the lights below, making this the perfect setup for not only controlling our lights, but also our temperature and humidity and vapor pressure deficit in all the different spaces. This controller also has 2 sensors built in, well, 2 sensors capable of going into it. We have our 2 gray wires here, which, let me get over to the other side, have our temperature and humidity sensor here. This is commercial grade. I will be relocating this. It's just sitting on top of the light for now. And then we have another one back here. Both of these will be located under the plant's canopy, so we know what our vapor pressure deficit is doing around this under canopy lighting. Above the canopy, we have our Pulse Pros here. 1 there, 1 there, 1 located over here, along with our Pulse Hub, which has, you can put up to 12 sensors on 1 hub. We have a THV sensor, which does temperature, humidity, vapor pressure deficit. We also have another one inside the irrigation room, which I'll show you later on. The combination of all the sensors around the room will allow us to know that we have a perfect environment in all areas and not having any microclimates that are out of control. We have another FlexStar controller over here, controlling this half of the room, both the lights here and the temperature and humidity sensors there. Above the lights over there, we have a circulation fan or clip fan, 6-inch. That is just in front of the air conditioning, which is a 3-ton model, to blow the humidity if it ever comes out of our humidifier here. It was, the humidity was coming out of there and going directly into our AC system, making it overrun and overcooling the room. So having that fan there directs any humid air to that side of the room and then gets recirculated evenly before it gets to the AC system. That's a very important fan to have up there to keep our temperature dialed in inside the room. You might not see any dehumidifiers in this room. That's because I'm running something similar to a reheat system, but ultimately it's kind of a heater and then dehumidifying system. AC system is pretty much a big dehumidifier. The way that you use it as a dehumidifier is it needs to be on, which cools down the room along with lowers the humidity inside the room. So to keep your temperature stable inside the room, you need to add heat to the room, which is we're doing by using electric heaters. We have one right here. This is a 2,000 watt electric heater. You can see that you have adjustability there to even out your heat temperatures or heat load you're putting into the room. And then on this corner of the room, we have another heater located above this light to really space out the heat across the room. The point of the heaters is to offset the cool air that comes out of the AC system to keep the temperatures at your set point. It's very important. Below the tables, we have 4 fans located on each of the tables, well, 2 on this side and 2 on this side. This blows air under the tables and up the walls. We have a ceiling fan here, which is blowing air down. Ideally, you want to get a ceiling fan that blows air up, so the air in the room would channel up the center of the room and then across the ceiling and back down the walls or to your plants. You don't really want your airflow being pushed directly onto your plants. So this isn't the most ideal setup. We might change it in the future, but this is what I'm working with right now. I just want to explain that to you guys as we go. We might make changes to this space as we go, but overall, I'm pretty happy with where we have it right now currently. For the drain system and irrigation side of things, we have our drain coming out of each table, one on each, and then a hose, flexible, that goes into our catch reservoir here. Give you a view of the other side. Here's the other table, goes under our shelving system here, and then into our reservoir. Let me move my camera here, and then we can take a look at the pump inside, which has a float valve. I still need to connect the outlet hose on there, and then eventually the hose will go out of this tank and then to the drain back there. That way this will be automatically draining our runoff from our tables, so we won't ever have to worry about that other than checking to make sure these lines don't get clogged. I would recommend checking those lines or blowing air through the lines once a week so you don't have any issues of it backing up and flooding the table over here. On the irrigation side of things, we already have our feed pipes located on the table, looped around. This is one big loop. I still need to connect the feed side of things. This fitting will go like this, and then we'll have a rubber hose or flexible hose that connects from here to the ceiling. Sorry, let me get it right there. So each table has its own feed, one from there to there, and one from here to up here. I still need to put in the electronic valves here and 2 filters, which we will do in the future. I'm just trying to get this space up and running, and then we'll make the upgrades later on. So the feed line goes across the ceiling, down the wall, into our irrigation room, which eventually will be our nutrient tank right here. I just need to add a 90-degree here and then a pump inside that tank. That is just to get us going. In the future, we have our water storage tanks right here for now. Later on, we'll put a dosatron setup right across here, and this will hold our front row egg nutrients. This will be part A, part B, and bloom. So that will make things much more simple, not having to mix nutrients every single day, because one of these tanks will do about a day and a quarter, a day and a half. So we will have to get in here and mix nutrients probably once a day to keep things running until we have our Dosatron set up here. If you want to see a Dosatron setup, let me know in the comments below, because they did just come out with a lower price point on a Dosatron model aimed at home growers. So maybe we'll get that system set up here so we can see just how reliable and efficient that is going on. But for now, we're running these two tanks as RO water. I have my nutrients mixed in here already. You can see we have one of these pumps. It's a 1/4 horsepower that's going up, and then it just angles back in to do some recirculation and mixing of nutrients in this tank right now. We got front row egg nutrients in there ready to go for our clones for transplanting. I'll give you the readout. This is what I use for my pH and EC. I also have one more sensor, which is an ORP sensor, to tell us how sterile our water source or nutrients is. Currently we got a 6.01 pH in there, and then we'll move it over to the EC reading, which is 2.1. That's a little lower than I would like to see. I would like 2.5 to 2.8 on our veg nutrients, but this is what we're going to get started, and on our second feeding we'll up the EC level. We'll go over to here. This would be our ORP reading if we switch out the pH meter and put our ORP sensor. It's just located upstairs right now, so we don't have a reading on that right now. I'm pretty happy with this little meter, as it does a great job. Never had some issues with it. I actually just calibrated it with our solutions over here. We got our pH solutions to calibrate and our EC solutions. Very important to stay on top of that. So we did that before mixing the nutrients and made sure everything's dialed in right now. You can see these white lines. These are for my RO filtered water, and it automatically fills the tank when needed if our valve here is open. Currently it's closed, going sideways. As you can see, the tank is fully full and our float valve is right there. Currently filling these two tanks. Don't mind the mess over here. I just was doing the irrigation, and we still need to do our drip emitters in the lines on the tables, which is why those are here. All we're using is a basic RO filter system, 75 gallons per day. This is a little undersized for the space. I would go up to 150 gallons per day, which I'll do in the future, but for now this is getting the job done. Very happy with that. As we go out back into the room again, we still have to hook up our Pulse Hub sensors. Currently it's just connected to a Wi-Fi. How valuable the Pulse dashboard is to a grow room, because not only we can collect data from the Pulse Hub, we can put it into zones with our Pulse Pros or Pulse Ones and Pulse Zeros to really label everything and know exactly where all the sensors are and what kind of data we can collect, and also do calculations to see if everything's on point. Like our moisture content sensor that will go in our growing medium. We have one per table currently. I will in the future get 4 more, so we have 1 per light. That way we can do multiple strains in here if need be on each table. But right now we're dealing with 1 moisture content sensor per table. The idea to get started was 1 entire strain here, 1 entire strain here. But unfortunately, half the rainbow root clones never rooted. I bought 3 trays of these ones from a source nearby as cuttings. They cut the cuttings for you, put them in the growing medium, which is cocoa here, and then send it off to you with the tray, the pot, the cocoa, and the cutting, and then you do the rooting yourself. Unfortunately, I don't know what quality the cuttings were, but about a tray and a half of them never rooted. So we're down to a half of the cuttings that I did purchase. Down here, these are the clones that I took from upstairs, from my rooftop, from my own plants. We lost 1 cutting or clone out of these 2 trays. So much different style rooting techniques, as I use plugs. You can see the roots there. On this one is Mandarin Cookies, which is one of the harder strains to root compared to the remaining strains that I do have here. Sorry if that was a lot of talking. I just want to give everybody a good overview of the current space and everything we've done up until this point. so we can move forward. Before we head upstairs and check out the grow tent room, which we'll be doing the 3 grow tents of breeding projects with all my clones that I currently have. Well, let's check out some B-roll of the space in here and then switch over to transplanting the clones into our 1 gallon pots here. Okay, so I finished transplanting all the clones for this space. This entire table is white runts. Take a quick look at each of the clones. There's some discoloring, but I hope now that they're in bigger pots and spaced out that they'll green back up and become much more healthy. You can see a little bit of nutrient deficiency there, but once they're in these bigger pots, I'm sure that will be overcome. Over here, we have, let's start at the back. From here back is rainbow fruits. Got 12 of those strain, 12 clones from that one. This one's not doing too good. I really don't like the clones in the cocoa pots being rooted like this. They're super fragile. The roots break very easily. I killed 2 clones by transplanting them. Once they're out of this pot, these stems are very fragile. I don't know if it's the genetics from where I got them from or this style of rooting, but I really don't like it at all. These plugs, you can move them around. They're not gonna break or anything. These ones over here, if you touch the base of this clone, this will snap the roots very quickly. Sorry, I dropped that. So going forward, I would either buy cuttings from somebody and not have them potted. Like they do offer them in that style from this place that I bought them from. So I'll no longer ask them to put them in the cocoa like that. That's a terrible style and way of doing it. And then I'll just put them in plugs if I do decide to buy cuttings from that person in the future. But overall, the room's all transplanted now. I just need to water them. The irrigation's not fully set up yet. I'll get to do that over the next 2 or 3 days. So we'll do a hand watering, which we should always do on the first watering to fully saturate the cocoa growing medium after transplanting the clones in there. So like we saw in the previous clip, we do have our nutrients here. I'll just take these jugs here and give each plant about 3/4 of this jug. This is 2 liters total in this thing, so about a liter and a half to a liter and 3/4 will go for each plant over there. Pretty excited at this stage. So I'll do that watering, set you guys up on the time lapse of doing the watering, and then we'll move upstairs to the grow tent room to transplant the rest of the clones that we have here. Just realized I forgot to go over the remaining strains that I put in here before we go upstairs, so I'll go over those. Starting, these are the rainbow fruits. Then we got mandarin cookies right here, 3 of those. Orange kush cake, 3 of those. Lemon berry candy, 3 of those. Devil's cherries, 3 of those. And then permanent marker here, 3 of those. So good selection of different strains on this table, which we will be using some of these strains upstairs in the grow tent room for breeding project. We got white runts over there and rainbow fruits at the back. Okay, so everything's transplanted. We got all white runts here. Got the other strains there. Everything's watered. So pretty happy about that. We did run into one situation over here. I forgot that there's an offshoot here, and when I was watering the plants, the runoff came in here and then also backed up and came out of here. So I'll have to find a cap to go on top onto there. But for now, I took the hose off and just put a jug under each one of those just to avoid any spills on the floor here. And then we'll also have to get some hose clamps for both of these fittings right here, and hose clamps for here and a cap for there to finish off the drain system. No big deal. It was okay for this single hand watering, but in a couple days I'll have to have that completed when I do a really thorough watering with heavy runoff. So those are all situated. The remaining clones up here are ready to go upstairs. We are running about 350 ppfd at the tops of the plants currently. We have about 40% power, 290 watts being used from the above canopy lights. We won't use the under canopy lights until around day 12 of flower, and then we'll do our manicuring or leaf stripping according to what we need to do for the under canopy lights. Same thing on this side. Check that out so you can see. The reflection is pretty bad, so I don't know if I can get it on camera. 40%, 290 watts. As you can see, our lights turn on at 6 p.m. and go off at 11 a.m. I'm going to switch that to 7 p.m. and 11 a.m. That gives us 16 hours of light. Anthony from Solventless SBNV or Pinnacle recommended 16 hours of light during veg time. So we're gonna try that out and see how that changes, because most people use 18 hours of light for veg. So I'm going to take his recommendations for this round and see how it goes for here. Pretty interested to see how that is, and if we can save a little bit of powder, that's a little bonus here, because electricity is a little bit expensive here in Thailand. We did use our par meter to figure out the ppfd at the top of the plant, so that's important to note. Otherwise, we got our CO2 at 600 ppm. Currently, we'll up that as the plants get bigger and closer to flower. Let me know what you guys think of this room. Okay, so we're up in the grow tent room. You can see the 4x8 tent behind me and the double 4x4s right behind me here. It's the next day after the last clip. Today's project is getting the heaters installed, 2 electric heaters, which are 2,000 watts in each of them, to control the humidity in this room, combined with our 2-ton AC system. This one is a little bit smaller than the one downstairs, as downstairs is a 3-ton. So we're gonna see how this one can keep up with the growing environment in this space. So these are the electric heaters we're using. These are from China. They come with this style plug, which I've been told is from Australia, or 230 volt system. So they do come with this adapter, which is a 10 amp rating plug adapter for what is supposed to be sized correctly for this. I had this installed downstairs in the 6-light room, and this one melted within 1 day. So I upgrade these to a 16 amp plug adapter. That way it can fit in my plugs here in Thailand. So just that little upgrade. Don't use these if you're gonna buy these style heaters. These are 2,000 watts in each. They do slightly keep up with the 3-ton downstairs, but we are going to see how they do. They might be a little bit overpowered for our 2-ton AC system up there, which we can adjust the rating down here to a lower level if need be. Next project we'll get on to after that is our carbon filter, inline fan, and ductwork, because the 4x8 does not have a ventilation system right now, and this tent over here does not have a carbon filter or a fan. As you can see, that one has one over there, because I stole this one to put on here with our HEPA filter. So we're gonna have to upgrade this one over here. The 8-inch fan and filter is going to be a little oversized for this size grow tent, which is 4x4. So we will have to power down the level quite a bit so it doesn't suck in the tent walls too much. We do, however, have the high CFM kit on here, which will stop the tent walls from sucking in too much. But again, we want the proper airflow going in the tent, which is going to be passive air. We'll just have a couple vents at the bottom open and pulling the air out of the top. Next project after we finish the fan and filters and the heaters here, we'll move on to setting up our pulse hub here. We have 2 brand new water content sensors here. You can see that we already have one there and one there for that grow tent. So we'll be adding these 2 new ones for this side of the 4x8 and this side for the 4x8. So this grow tent will act as one entire same chamber, but we're gonna
use it as two separate data collection points. We'll have a temperature humidity sensor on this side and a temperature humidity sensor on this side. And then also we will move downstairs. I have this already installed in the 6-light room, but I need to connect some of the sensors to the actual Pulse Hub. For setting up the Pulse Hub, when adding new devices or sensors like this one, you connect this end to the settings, which is this port right here. Once you've added it in the Pulse app to this device, then you can disconnect it, add it to the line which is connected into here. And this is just a network cable that runs all the way around the room, which you have seen me do in past videos. But if you haven't, here is the Pulse Hub, here's the network cable, and this just goes around my entire room and daisy chains all the different sensors across the room with these separate T's. So each T would be another sensor. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. That is located there because we will have a 4x4 grow tent here in the future. Just give it another month or so as I'm using it in a different location. And those 4 ports will have a pH sensor, a EC sensor, a THB sensor, and a moisture content sensor. Since our reservoirs are right here, that's where our pH and EC meters will connect.
That's quite a bit of work to get done all in one day, but if we do get that all done, we are going to move on to transplanting the clones in each of these grow spaces so we can start our breeding project for Blem Genetics.
We have all of our cocoa here ready to go. Oh, I just kicked a sensor there, but these are the cocoa bags that we're gonna use. We're gonna plant directly into these. If you've watched me for the past year or so, you would have seen me use these in my commercial facility, which is a 64 light flowering room. We've got 2 of those going on, which we will be transplanting new clones into that room in about 2 weeks. So that will be back on the channel. I know a lot of you guys have been excited or questioning what happened to that facility. I do still have it, so it will be back on the channel very soon. So we got all of our cocoa bays here ready to go to be spread out to all of these grow spaces.
So I just finished getting all 3 grow tents fully assembled. A few things were not completed when I originally put these up, so we added a few more pieces of equipment to the space to really utilize the entire space and make it efficient, along with having our environment under control in all different areas. So let me go over what I accomplished, both in the time lapse and some stuff that I did off the camera. Okay, so we'll start on the 4x8 VivoSun grow tent here. We have the under canopy lighting from FlexStar. We got 4 bars of those. Each one is 120 watts. They are controlled by their own VivoSun grow hub here. So this one goes down to the under canopy lighting, and then we have 2 fan outputs here. One is going to this fan here, and the other one is going to this fan, so we can turn those off when needed if we're doing any spraying inside the tent or whatnot, and we can change the power level on those also. We also have a temperature and humidity sensor plugged into this. That way we have a sensor for under canopy, we have a sensor for in the middle of the canopy, and we have one more over here to give us a good understanding of if the temperature or humidity is even across the entire tent. We should ideally have one more over here so we have across the entire tent, but maybe we'll get from Pulse another THV sensor. This is located right in the center and is connected to our Pulse hub. We have the 645 watt VivoSun grow lights up here. These are controlled by this one on this side. We can control the light power up here, and then down here we have our fan and filter, which you saw me install on the time lapse. An 8-inch carbon filter with the inline fan. Ideally, you want the setup in the other direction where you pull air through the carbon filter and then through the inline fan. Ultimately,
we need all the space in this grow tent that we can get. So we have the fan on the outside of the grow tent. Ideally, you want to put it on the inside, but because of our height restraints, we chose to do it the other way. If you do it the other way, you would ideally want this pre-filter on the inside. I just put it on the outside just to make things easier. The filter does not last as long without a pre-filter on the inside, so just be aware of that. Since these are one channel controllers, we have to have two. One to control the lights above the canopy and one to control the lights below the canopy. We have two clip fans down there, both are 6-inch, doing air circulation under the canopy. Then we have the two up here doing air circulation above the canopy. So that's pretty much it for this entire grow tent. We still need to install our two water content sensors, which will be connected to the Pulse Hub that we already have located over there. I just need to add them to the Pulse Hub on the app, which I will be doing next. Off camera, I did the two electric heaters, which I think I already mentioned previously. Those are controlled by our humidity controllers right here for now. Later on, we will update our controllers to the Pinnacle control system. We have one over there and one right here. One is connected to this and one is connected to this, controlled separately, because I think during lights on, we will only need one of these heaters. And then during nighttime, when the lights are off, we will use both of them. Currently, the lights being on is a heat source. So that offsets the temperature of the air conditioning air coming out of here when we want to dehumidify the room in here. As for this grow tent over here, we didn't really do any changes because this tent was 100% already. But over here, we did add the 8-inch inline fan and carbon filter, same setup that we have on this tent. It will be oversized for here, so we will have to reduce the speed of the air exchanging. You'll notice on this tent, we have two controllers. This one controls the light above the canopy. This one is connected to both tents and controls both under canopy lighting on a single channel. So if either of them want to be on, they both have to be on, and they're dimmed at the same level. Ideally, for content wise, I would like to have these grow tents offset by a few weeks. That way we always have a grow tent in flowering stage to make the most exciting content for you guys to watch. But for a production standpoint, we want them all to be on the same time frame. That way we can control the temperature, humidity, and whatnot, and the CO2 levels, all to be ideal for the current stage of growth. If they are offset, either one tent will be sacrificing some efficiency on growing environment. I've done that in the past, having them on different time frames, and we are just getting lackluster results. So from going here forward, I'm just gonna have everything on the same time frame. It also makes it a lot easier for me when mixing nutrients and planning the harvest schedules or de-leafing schedules of not only this room, since there's 3 different growing environments in here, but also the room downstairs and the large commercial facility. So to narrow it down to be all on the same schedule makes things a lot easier going forward. So the next step in here is getting our plants or our clones from downstairs up here and transplanting them into our cocoa bags. I'll just get a table up here so I'm not bending over onto the ground while doing the transplanting, and then we'll have clones in each of these grow tents. So I'll set you guys up on the time lapse while I do that and get that next step knocked out of here. Okay, before I transplant all the plants into this room, I just want to finish off the Pulse Hub to get all the sensors connected. If you are just purchasing the Pulse Hub and its sensors, be sure to do this step first before laying out your room in putting them in each of the locations, because you do have to connect the sensor directly up to the setting port right here before connecting it to the network port, which will be daisy chained all the way around your room. I've done this a couple times where I set up the room for content purposes, and then I'll have to go around and move the hub to each location where the sensor is. So just do it like this. First, label all your sensors where you want to put them, and then go through and route it around the entire room. So I've already done the THV sensor located right here. The other ones that are located in this tent, and this tent were already done from a previous location. So these 2 sensors are the only new ones for this hub. So what I'll do is connect this one now to here. I'll go into the Pulse app, go add new sensor to this Pulse Hub. It'll ask you to scan the side of the hub, and then you scan it. It'll give you a green check mark, and then it'll tell you to scan the sensor, which you do like this, and it'll give you a green check mark, and then you are done. You can set it up into your space after that, and it's good to be working. So I'll go through that process with these 2 more sensors, and then once that's completed, I'll put these 2 water content sensors, one there and one in here. Okay, so I ended up getting the sensors all located. So we got one moisture content sensor located right there, another one located right here, perfect. And then I ended up adding one more in here. This is for the 4x4 grow tent that will eventually be here, so we just put that in there since I have it anyways. I still have to connect the 2 sensors for the irrigation. One will be pH, one will be EC to go in there. I just need to clean those sensors as they are pretty dirty from the last location. I just don't want to bring them in here and put them in the reservoir until they're fully cleaned. But overall, in here is done until we transplant. So let's head downstairs. I'm gonna do the same process for the pulse hub down there, so we have that place situated for sensors as we already have plants in there. So we really need to get the environment data collection under control. Okay, so it's the day after the transplanting of the clones into this room. We completed the pulse hub, connecting all the sensors to this specific hub because this is a brand new one. I haven't used this in another location before, and then all these sensors were brand new, so I had to connect all to the settings port here, and now they're connected to the network, completely going around the room, connecting every single sensor all the way around the room. And we have our 2 moisture content sensors here, one for this table, which is located in this plant, and then one over there located in that plant over there. So not many sensors on the pulse hub currently, but in the future we'll add another moisture content sensor here, 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 and here. So we have 3 on each table. In the future, this will be a Blem Genetics testing room where we'll have 1 strain on each light. So 9 plants times 3 on here, and then 9 plants times 3. So we have 6 strains testing at a single time frame. I guess going forward on the channel, we'll give you daily updates of what I am doing in the room, and just so you guys can follow along. And if you think that my results are good, you can copy that. I'm not saying my way is the best way. I'm just showing you guys exactly what I do and the results that come from it. So today, try and show you this without the reflection. It's kind of hard to see here. You can see I put the power level up to 50%, 360 watts is being used. And we have the lights on for 16 hours now. We did that on both controllers here. Maybe this one's a little easier to see, I don't know. A little bit of reflection, but 50%, 360 watts, 16 hours of light. We have these lights turned off because there's enough light going from these ones onto here for now. I am going to be transplanting these upstairs in the grow tent room next. They just needed to stay in here for 1 more day while I was getting that room completed, as you see in the previous clips. Overall, happy with this location. I'll throw up on the screen right now the Pulse data and the Pulse platform. Very important to be able to monitor all the data collection that you have in your rooms to make sure your environment is correct in all spaces, not just at the canopy level. You want to know all your microclimates, like the corner of the room, the center of the room, under the canopy, above the canopy, and most important, your reservoir. So you need to know what is going on inside your water before you are giving it to the plants. You want both the EC, pH levels, the ORP reading. I don't have an ORP reading connected to the Pulse Hub currently, but we will add that in the future when it's available. I do have it on my handheld device, which I do use that externally separated from the Pulse Hub. But overall, you can see the data that I'm currently showing you, how the environment has been over the first 24 hours of this room being turned on. It has had some fluctuations in the previous days coming up to having the plants in here. That was because I was trying some different settings, and ultimately the AC got turned on to only a fan mode, so it wasn't cooling the room for about 12 hours, and we saw the temperatures in this room up close 90 degrees or higher, which was too hot for the plants being in here, but they did recover quite fast. No real damage on them over that time frame. These ones up here don't have any roots. Well, most of them don't. As you can see, over the last 24 hours, they've wilted down. Not the best condition clones out here, but we will bring these back to life, and hopefully some of these strains are good quality overall. That's enough for this room in here for today. Let's head upstairs and transplant these clones into their grow tents so we can finally make them healthy along with much larger. Okay, so it's the next day. I'm back up in here in the grow tent room. We've got a bunch of clones already organized into the 3 separate breeding projects up in here. Right before we get to transplanting on the time lapse, I just want to give you a quick look at the clones as they have been organized into separate projects now. So here's the first project that we're going to be transplanting for the 4x4 over here. This one will be purple pineapple crossed by 9 different strains. We'll go over the strains once they're transplanted and put into the grow tent. You can see a little bit of deficiency going on here. These clones weren't the healthiest when I got them and were pretty weak going through the rooting process. The ones in these types of trays and plugs are my own from the rooftop. Much more healthy and strong genetics along with rooting. Just overall happy with using plugs over this style, which is the cocoa. This came to me oversaturated, so it took a very long time for the growing medium to dry back, which produces roots on their first dry back. So be wary of getting clones with cocoa, and if they oversaturate the cocoa, you're gonna have a tough time getting them to root healthy without any issues. So that's just one issue we had with those. So going forward, we'll just, if we get cuttings from somebody, we won't get them placed into the growing medium. Next project over here is for our 4x8 here. This one will be crossed with Devil's Cherries by 18 strains. So we'll put those in the grow tent over there, the 4x8. And the last project is right here. We'll be crossing White Runts to 9 different strains. A bunch of extra clones up here. You can see all very healthy after the rooting process. Great white roots. The air pruning since they have been in these little containers for a bit too long, but overall very healthy. We'll send these off to a few people in the area that want them. But overall, we'll get to transplanting, set you guys up on the time lapse over there, and get our cocoa into all the grow tents. So I just finished all the transplanting of all 3 grow tents in this space. We'll go over the strains, and some of the clones ended up breaking right at the stem, the ones that were in the cocoa pots. Unfortunately, I really don't like those style because if you don't compress the cocoa a really hard amount, the stem moves around too much and is very easy to damage. So here's an example of the stem breaking right at the cocoa. This was Rainbow Fruits. That was my only one that I had of this strain, so unfortunately it didn't make it through. But we'll start over here on the left 4x4 grow tent, go over the strains that we have here. So this project will be permanent marker crossed by 9 different strains here. We do have one extra plant back there, which is Super Buff Cherry, number 26, because I don't believe Hawaiian Rain, which is right in front of it, is very strong. I think it might die because again, it was just like the Rainbow Fruits that I just showed you, a little weak right at the base of the stem where it meets the cocoa. So we'll see how it does. If it doesn't take off with the rooting inside these bigger pots, then we'll replace it with the Super Buff Cherry. But we'll start at the front. We got White Runts, Hawaiian Rain. Back there is Orange Kush Cake, Dante's Inferno, Strawberry Banana Cream, Granny Mac, Slurricane number 7, Slaughterhouse, and Lemonberry Candy OG back there. So I think this is a really exciting lineup for a breeding project, let me know which one of these is your favorite cross with the permanent marker. I'm really excited about the Slaughterhouse or Lemonberry Candy OG, but overall, they're all really good strains. So let's move over to this 4x4 tent. We got the Orange Kush Cake, which will be crossed to the other 9 plants in here. We got Grandpa's Cookies, Animal Mint Cake crossed by Gary Sinner, Super Buff Cherry number 26, Lemonberry Candy OG, Slaughterhouse, LA, Banana Cake, Granny Mac, Ice Cream Cake, and Platinum Kush Breath back there. Another exciting project. My favorite in here is going to be the Orange Kush Cake by either Granny Mac or Orange Kush Cake crossed with the Super Buff Cherry number 26. My 2 favorites. Let me know what you think in here is going to be your favorite or what you will get once they're all ready. Over here in the 4x8 tent, we have quite a few strains. We ended up doing the Devil's Cherries. We got 2 of those, which we will reverse. Again, these will be all feminized seed projects. Later in the future, maybe we'll do a regular seed project, but for now, we're going to do it like this. So we'll go over all the strains in this grow tent. We got Ice Cream Cake, Mandarin Cookies, Alien OG, Platinum Kush Breath, Permanent Marker, Lemonberry Candy OG, White Runts, Mocha Truffle, Slurricane number 7, Grandpa's Cookies, Dips. Over here we got Purple Pineapple, Super Buff Cherry number 26, Orange Kush Cake, Blackberry Oreo Big Stuff, Strawberry Banana Cream, Granny Mac, and Animal Mint Cake by Gary Sinner. So a lot of selection in this. The 2 plants that we will reverse just because it's a bigger area, so I want to make sure that we have enough pollen to cover all the plants in here once they do go to flower. I still need to get in here and water all them by hand. These are the same pots that I used in my commercial facility. If you've been watching me for the last year or so, they are 100% cocoa and 1.6 gallons of cocoa in the growing medium. I ordered these custom sizing just for me in a 10-liter plastic bag, and then I knocked some holes in the side of it. I put 6 on this side, 6 on that side for both water drainage and aeration of the growing medium. Worked really well in the commercial facility, so we're gonna use them again in here. Here are all of the clones that I have remaining. Just a few extra of each of the strains. Super healthy. I always prefer clones being rooted in these plugs. Just gives the most secure. Like, I can throw these around and no worries of them breaking, unlike the clones in the cocoa, unfortunately. So that's just my preferred method of cloning. I know I've said that a few times in this video, but the results speak for itself. Here's the remaining white runts down here that pretty much have died off now. Hoping these 2 get some roots out of there. I did take the pod off, but there are no roots coming out to the sides of the growing medium, so who knows if those will survive, but the remaining of them will be going in the garbage. Pretty excited to have plants in here. Again, we're not 100% sure that plants will survive in this space past 7 to 12 days. The last plants I did put in here to test did lower their health after about 8 days. But I'm out of time. I need to get plants in here. So I think with the improvements we've done in here with the Horty 25, the HEPA air filter, all the carbon filters, I think that will be enough to really improve the air in here. We got everything dialed in with the Pulse Hub, the Pulse One. We have a Pulse Pro in every tent. We have the THV sensors above the canopy, below the canopy, on the sides of the canopy. That goes for all the grow tents. Pulse Pro, under canopy, above canopy, above canopy. We have sensors everywhere in here to really know that our entire environment is under control. We have our humidity controller here connected to our electric heater, just like that on this side. Another humidity controller connected to this heater, so we have 2 heaters there. We have 2 sources of CO2 controllers, 1 to each of these tanks. One is set about 80 ppm lower than the other one. That way, if one take runs out, the other one takes over, and then by the next time I can get over here, I can switch the controllers and make it back up to the higher ppm that we desire. And the lower, once this one takes over, we know that one tank is empty. Overall, we're gonna run with the tent doors open right now during veg. And then once we flip to flower, we'll shut the doors because we don't want any pollen going from our reverse plants outside of each growing environment, contaminating the other projects in the space. So I think that's all my time I have for this week's video. It was a lot of work getting everything dialed in, both this room, the 6 light room below me, the breeding tent that I have going on at a different location, which I didn't show in this video, but is doing fairly well. Didn't end up being a breeding project after all because of the Lemonberry Candy OG being sterile, so there was no pollen. So I'm left with about 19 strains in that grow tent, which are just going to be flower and will go in the Turpicais Cafe and Lounge later on once those are done. So I'm excited to get some fresh flavors inside the shop so you can all enjoy that during the high season here in Thailand, because the weather is about to turn. It has been a rainy season up until this point, but next month rain's over and all the tourists end up coming back to the city. So I'm excited about that upcoming season, because we did open that shop right at the end of high season, so we didn't really get a taste of what high season really is. So until next time, happy growing everyone, and remember to get out there and make it happen.